Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Many a moons ago, we unboxed a Stratocaster that I challenged you guys to reach a certain amount of likes, and then I would buy the complete set of the currently offered ones. Today is the day I make good on my promise. You might be wondering, why only one box? Don't worry, I just unboxed the other ones for the sake of time. So, today we finally review the Michiya Haruhata Stratocaster. He was actually Japan's first endorsed guitarist by Fender. I believe that was back in 2002. And his first signature guitar, from what I could find, was this really cool like see-through blonde finish. It was a custom shop. And since then, he's had many different iterations. These ones are Fender Japan made, so they're Japan exclusives. You can't buy them in the US. You have to import them yourself, pay import duties, taxes, crazy shipping costs, etc. But seeing as I have a mainly American audience, you probably haven't heard this guy's name before. So he is a guitarist for the band Tube, but he does so much more than that. But his band is a Japanese pop rock band. Now, it can fall into a bunch of different categories like power pop, but don't get turned off by the word pop or whatever. His music really tells a story. I especially like his more solo work and his works with other bands. It's like melodic, it can be very hard, fast hitting, it can also be soft. Like sometimes he even has some sexy sax in his song, so he's got just everything going on here. Whenever I listen to music, being a guitarist, I like to listen to stuff that is guitar heavy and guitar influenced, and that's exactly what his is. So if nothing else from this video, type in Michiya Haruhata on YouTube and check some stuff out. Because he's been active in that band Tube since 1985, so he is a big deal over in Japan. So let's go ahead and check out his new signature guitars. Well, one of these was actually released in 2018. The one that we unboxed was actually fairly newer, but I just never heard of these other ones until that one. But here we go. This is the color I did not unbox. I wanted to start with that one so it was something a little bit new, but don't worry, that other one's sitting over there. So what makes his signature guitar so interesting is the fact that it's got the reverse 70s style Fender headstock. So that means it's this big, giant, clunky version. It's what he likes. But then this one, being released back in 2018, it is blue. And there's a bunch of different things that's different between these two offerings that are currently available from Fender Japan. But personally, I think I like this one. I mean, this is a gorgeous quilt top. Yes. I mean, it's even got a little bit of movement. That's the problem with quilt tops. The more extreme you get with them, the less movement you get in the figuring. But you can tell that is a very, very thin veneer. We'll see that over on the workbench if I decide to tear this particular one apart. But as far as being a Stratocaster, what makes it unique is obviously the top that we were just talking about, the unique finish. It's an HSH setup with a pearloid pickguard. You even have abalone inlays on the fretboard. But not only that, holy cow! They did it on the side of the neck too. They never do that. That's really cool. And then of course this is a locking Floyd Rose type system. It's Goto branded, made in Japan. But now you might be curious, what's the back look like? It's pretty nice. This one, I believe it's an ash body if I remember correctly. And then you just get kind of a satin finished maple neck on here. So that is a first look at this one. Now let's go ahead and grab our other one. Because I told you guys this would be just a big video. You reached the milestone of likes, so I'm paying it back to ya. I got two of the blue ones because I couldn't decide. No, this was actually a new Guitar Day purchase. Similar to that Gino Jazz bass, unfortunately it had to be forfeited due to he needed to put his money somewhere else, so I helped him out in that case. So yeah, we've got two of them here. Which one is your favorite? I would say they're very close. Like, they are both beautiful guitars, and the quilting is very similar. Like, this one's actually a little bit more heavily done, but I think I like this one because it's a little bit more uniform and wide. That's the way I like my flame and quilt tops, wide. So if you're interested in either of these, you can check them out on my website after my review, troglysguitarshow.com. But now for the one that I meant to grab, we have this one. So we've seen this before, but this time it's like a more very pinstripey flame. Like, it's got some wide factors to it. But you're also going to notice, oh, whoa, there are some significant differences just between these two. So the first very obvious thing is this has a pickguard, this new one does not. It's still the exact same pickups as far as the humbuckers and single coils go. You do have fancy electronics on these that we'll talk about later, and it's the same 5-way toggle switch, but you'll also notice side output jack on this one versus the jack on the top. So when I first saw this one, I thought it was red. It's actually technically trans pink. I mean, you can kind of see it on the back side of the guitar that it's pink, but the top is definitely red. So if you don't want a pink guitar, I really wouldn't let that scare you. I think most people, if they looked at this, they would say it's red. But I thought Michiya was like some 80s hair metal guy, and some of his stuff does get heavy, don't get me wrong, but based on my first impressions, I thought what his music was going to be was completely different from what his guitar told me. But some other differences here, obviously black inlays on here instead of abalone. Oh, I did not realize that. It's obvious when you look at it. This one has the rosewood fretboard, this one's maple, but that also changes up your construction of the neck. So you have the skunk stripe over here, whereas this is just a straight up maple neck because, you know, they don't have to do that process because they have a fretboard on this one. So the wood color's a little bit different on the necks, but that's just going to vary example to example. And of course, the other obvious thing is flame versus quilt. I think they are both very cool guitars. Which one do I want to continue this review and documentation of? Despite this being the older one, I like the blue one a little bit better, but that side output jack on that other Stratocaster is pretty cool. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit more about his other signature guitars. So, as you've already learned, these are the Fender Made in Japan production models that were supposed to be a little bit cheaper, more accessible for people to buy. But what else is out there? Well, they're mainly custom shops in very limited numbers. So that first one in 2002, I think it was that see-through blonde as I was telling you before. But in 2005/2006, there's a black one that is like very Zemaitis-like themed because it has a metal pickguard on it and it's engraved. And they also did the engraving on the jack plate and a whole bunch of other locations on the guitar. And it's got an iron cross on the front, which is, you know, kind of cool. But the pickup configuration was different on that one. That was an HSS setup with a Floyd. And of course it had his trademark reverse 70s style headstock. And then in 2011 there was a custom shop version of this guitar. That is why this thing exists. It's a Japan-made exclusive version of his custom shop one. So if you're kind of a guitar snob guy and you don't want to have a made in Japan guitar, or you want the highest end that you can possibly get, yeah, you can find a custom shop version of this guitar if that is what you're wanting, but they're very rare. And to be honest, I don't know if there's more because it's so hard to find them on Google search because most of them were very limited custom shop releases, and whenever you type in Michiya Haruhata Stratocaster, it's these guys that show up. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and throw this Michiya Haruhata Stratocaster onto the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs. Inside the Haruhata Stratocaster, I actually ran across a couple of surprises. So with all the pickups and everything out of here, it's just a humbucker, single coil humbucker route. So it's not a big, huge swimming pool under here. So if you had the big idea, let's do a triple humbucker Stratocaster, no, you can't do that without some additional routing. However, I did not notice this until I took it apart. These holes in the pickguard aren't actually used at all. The pickups are still attached directly to the body. There's some guys that say that sounds better than having it attached to a pickguard. So even though Mr. Pink over here doesn't have a pickguard, it's still attached the exact same way as this one, despite this one having the pickguard. So that's just kind of interesting. But here you can see that is just a super paper thin veneer. It's not a top by any means. It's just something put on the front to make it look pretty. But you can see the ash body in the pickup cavities as well as on the back. And just the fact that these things have ash bodies is kind of cool, because Fender kind of stopped using those. But then again, this was before they made that announcement. Well, at least when this model was released anyways. I really love the fact that this kind of has like an artificial wooden binding to it, because the top doesn't actually go over this contoured edge. So it just kind of gives you like this blue border that you only see it in like certain lighting situations. I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. So now let's talk pickups. Air Norton in the neck, Texas Special in the middle, and a DiMarzio Fred pickup in the bridge. Here's what that Air Norton looks like. So it mounts into this with screws directly into the body, as we were just talking about. But not only do you have the springs for the screws, but he wanted them to stay put. So they have little foam blocks on the back too. That is extra secure. So if you hate how sometimes humbuckers can move back and forth a little bit, this one should be pretty darn secure. They also did that for the Texas Special middle pickup and the Fred. It's labeled the DP193. Apparently these are supposed to be very extra responsive to touch. Like if you pick very softly, it's gonna pick that up. If you pick rough, it's gonna start to break up. I guess Joe Satriani is very famous for using one of these too. I just thought that was an interesting name. DiMarzio Fred. It's got the hex pull pieces too. But again, that's the same in both of these models. So artist signature guitar, it looks fantastic and it has great pickups. And the price really isn't that bad on these. Brand new, they're $178,200. Nah, just kidding, that's in yen. So roughly 1,700 US or so. And get this, we actually have CTS pots in here too. So this is good quality electronics. Usually that's the downfall of the made in Japan stuff. They build the guitars fantastically, they have great quality control, but unfortunately they're just kind of forced to put cheapy electronics in here. But this one, that's not the case. As far as the controls themselves go, you have 2 volumes and a master tone on this one. This controls just the middle pickup. So if you don't want your middle pickup on ever, you just turn that off, then whatever position has the middle pickup in it at all will not sound. This controls the neck and bridge pickup together. So that's a little bit different from a regular Stratocaster. And this is just a master tone. I guess it's more accurately portrayed as a push pot here. So when you have this up, it is adding the neck position into whatever one you're on. So this is neck, so it's not going to do anything. This is neck and middle, it's not going to do anything. But since this is the middle position, that's going to add your neck to it, so it's just like that position. But then this position right here is going to allow you to have all 3 pickups on at the same time. I don't think I've heard an HSH setup guitar like that before. And then of course, your bridge, you can now get a traditional Gibson middle pickup tone. So lots of tonal opportunities on this one with that little thing right there. But the pickguard itself is one of those Moto pickguards, so it's like a perloid material. You've got the metal knurled knobs, which you don't normally see on a Stratocaster. That's good for grip. And you'll notice, hey, our pickup selector switch is also chrome. Cool. As far as the output jack, very basic. This one is on the front, whereas this other one, it is located on the side. Personally, I really like side output jack guitars, but this blue, it just called me. And the fretboard, but we'll get to that in a minute. So this is a Japan Goto branded type of Floyd Rose. I don't know a lot about Floyds. I can't tell you what's good, bad, or ugly about this thing. Honestly, I probably won't even use it at all. And it was one of the reasons why I kind of delayed this review a little bit, because I'm just not a big fan of Floyds, because the way I play, I don't have a use for it. But, you know, if you're a talented guitarist, it's got it, instead of the regular trem system that most Stratocasters have. We'll take a look at that on the back in a minute. Now that that mess of wires is tamed and all installed back again, I wanted to show you what I was talking about earlier. So these are left exposed. Now you might be wondering, why? Doesn't that look awful once you know that they're just empty? It's so, even though it's directly mounted, just like these, you can still adjust the height of your pickup, even though there's a pickguard covering it. You just gotta get yourself a tiny little screwdriver, like what you find on a Gibson multi-tool or, you know, whatever multi-tool. Sometimes that's a little bit thick. I think this one's a little bit larger than normal. The first guitar I ever saw that on was the Gino Jazz Bass, and I was confused, but yeah, that's how you do it. It's just, so you get the aesthetic with the functionality. Cool. Speaking of functionality, let's see what these things read. So our bridge pickup, pretty hot, 7.78K ohms. Our middle position, 5.96, and the neck position here, whoa, 12.36. Okay, so these guys together, 4.1-ish, and now these two, 3.76. Then using our push-push pot here, it kind of shows you what I was talking about before. So this, in theory, should bring about half the reading. Yep, 5.6, because that's now these two together. And then this is every single pickup on. That seems about right. Whereas you take that off, it goes up a little bit. Very cool. Alright, finally, moving on from the ash body with the maple veneer, we get to the rosewood fretboard. We do have 22 frets on here, which a lot of the made in Japan stuff only has 21. They are medium jumbo in size, so they've got a lot of meat to them. As far as the radius, it's 9.5, so not quite vintage, not quite ultra modern, just somewhere right in between. And it's the regular 25.5 inch scale length. This has to be the nicest fretboard I have ever seen on a Fender guitar. Like, this is a brand new guitar, but yet it has that I've been used a little bit look to it. Like, it's nice and dark. It seems like it's been conditioned, but I did not touch this one. I just wanted to leave it just the way it was. That is a great color. I love the abalone inlays. It works really well with the official finish called Caribbean Blue, and that's just a beautiful finish, right? Especially matching it with the quilt, because, you know, it just reminds you of the water in general. I feel this guitar really encompasses my favorite songs of his. But again, if you prefer maple necks, you can go with the pink one. I decided to look at my other Stratocaster because sometimes you get some that has really cool colors and figuring in it. And this one almost looks like they mix matched abalone with mother of pearl, but you really got to view it from like this particular angle to start to see any blue, or like down like this. So I think it is abalone, despite very clearly almost looking like mother of pearl. And of course, don't forget you've got the abalone inlay on the side as well. But the fun does not end there. Let's continue on our neck specs here. We have a rather skinny nut width of 1.63 inches, and that increases to 2.03 by the 12th. But our first fret neck depth is 0.94. That sounds pretty big, right? But stays very consistent, only 0.95 by the 12th. So this actually has a soft V neck profile shape. So what that means to you is think a C shape, but it has like a very small hump on the back just to make it fit into your hand a little bit better. There are some guys that swear by V-shaped necks. Like, they make hard V necks too, where you can really see the pronounced V. But this one, you can just barely feel that it's there. It fits your hand pretty good, and it makes this neck feel pretty chunky. It's not giant by any means, but it is a good sized feeling neck. Let's check it out on the contour gauge. So here you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So here is the first fret. You see how it comes up to like a very soft point. Now a hard V would be like a complete V shape, you'd be able to see it, but it just kind of comes to a light point. But then by the 12th fret, it almost completely disappears. It just feels like a pretty nice chunky neck profile. When most people fret a guitar, they kind of have like a little pocket right here, so that's designed just to fit. But then when you're soloing up here, you don't necessarily need the big hard V shape. Like, you can still feel a little bit of a bump, but this is not a crazy V by any means. But you can definitely feel that on the back here. But to continue on, this does not have a regular nut. This is a locking nut system. This one actually has a tension bar over here to kind of help get the strings in place. But this is all for the Floyd Rose. So you just remove this, and then you got that little block. That holds the strings in place. So in theory, that's all locked off then. You can use your trem as much as you want, do the dive bombs, and it should stay relatively in tune. So before you tighten these down with an Allen key, you tune it up to pitch the best you can, and then you tighten these down, and then you continue on your tuning with these fine tuners down here. So that's what it'll look like when you're all done. But yeah, here's that strange, goofy headstock. 70s style, meaning it's just big and then it's reversed. One of the few guitars you can really do that on. Like, they've done reverse headstocks before, but this is the first one I've seen that's a big 70s style. That doesn't mean there's not other models. It's just the first one I've ran across. You can certainly find the smaller headstocks, but what is so absolutely bizarre and strange is the playing profile of this. I mean, look at that. Fender headstocks always kind of go back a bit and then are angled this way instead of the Gibson direction, which is this way. So whenever I have a reversed headstock style guitar, it just makes me think my headstock's broken, like, because Gibsons go snap like that. I'm just so used to playing those things, I just thought it was funny. That is something that's a bit strange when you're playing it. But now, moving on to the backside. The back plate on these is a little bit different because this trem system requires like a little jutting out point right here. You can see what I'm talking about here on the other one, so not your typical back plate on a Stratocaster. And this one over here has a back plate because you don't have a pick guard, so you have to get to the electronics somehow. Whereas this blue one, it's just left alone. But what's nice is this is actually recessed into the body, so it's not gonna like, you know, get caught up on your belt buckle or something. Whereas this, it does sit proud on the body. So that's another little difference that you might not have noticed at first. But man, I love the wood grain on this one. Nice and straight, a little bit wavy over here, but then in the cutaway you get the ringage. It just looks so nice. But this is what the trem system itself looks like. You've got 3 springs stock from the factory. Looks like a little brass block right there. And you tighten the arm down from the front, I believe. But as far as the neck plate, they're just blank on both of them. They don't have a signature or anything. And you can kind of see the V neck shape profile forming even just right here. You see how they have a V shape right there? And then the light just kind of reflects off the top. Yeah, that's some pretty nice wood grain too. I really like that. And you can kind of see that same phenomenon on this neck as well. But again, we've got a skunk stripe on this one due to the construction of it. Yeah, there you can see that V-shaped neck profile. But finally, the back of the headstock. We've got our serial number, made in Japan, and you have a silk screen of his signature. And that's the same on both iterations, including the F-stamped tuners. That's another 70s style thing. What I really like about these is they're pretty easy to grip, because instead of being a small button, they're kind of like the Schaller style ones where they're a little bit wider in feel. But at the same time, that's kind of bad because they kind of get very close to each other. It's just something you would get used to, I'm sure. As far as the weight, this one weighs 8 pounds, 3.2 ounces. I guess we should weigh the other one too. This one's almost the exact same. That's kind of freaky. Let's go ahead and plug the blue one in and hear how it sounds. Okay, let's go ahead and run through these tones. Pardon the tuning, I did the best that I absolutely could. I'm not the best with the Floyd Rose type systems. So, let's start with our neck pickup here. Okay. The thing I notice about this entire guitar is it almost sounds active. Like, do you guys hear that brightness to this? And you'll really notice that when we swap over to the bridge position. Now we'll try just the middle. Okay, now let's try the neck and middle position. Bridge and middle. Trying to play similar stuff so you can hear, you know, the combinations between the two and how they sound different. Okay, now you can't forget you've got those secret positions here. So that really only matters in the all the way down bridge pickup position and these two together. So we'll go ahead and activate that. Here's what it sounds like with all three pickups on. Very glassy. So a very versatile and bright sounding Stratocaster. Let's go ahead and try some distorted tones. With the distortion, that middle pickup makes everything sound so fat. I mean, here's the neck position. But you add that middle pickup in there, it just gets angry. Especially when you just have all three of them on here. Now that we know all about the Michiya Haruhata signature Stratocaster, was it worth it at the end of the day? Yeah, I think this was definitely worthy of its own separate review and demo. It is an absolutely gorgeous guitar, and I think for that reason you should own it, just in itself. But as far as like, would I actually own this if I was just strictly a player, not necessarily a collector? Probably not. I could not keep this thing in tune at all. I mean, I did the best I could on the playing demo because I blocked off the trem, but that's probably more so on me. I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I've watched the videos, I know you tune the strings, this one, that one, that one, this one, this one, that, but I still can't get these things to ever stay in tune. So that's more so on me. I'm sure if you take this to a professional place to get it set up, that would be fine, but I don't have a use for a Floyd Rose in my music. But the tones out of this were very fascinating. As I was saying in the playing demo, it almost sounds like an active pickup. It's so bright and attacking. I think that's kind of what they were talking about with this particular pickup. It really does change just how you pick it, but I mean, that's true for all pickups, but this one even more so. I had to lower that one down a little bit. It was just a little bit too crazy. As far as other alternatives to this, in case you don't want to import one, I mean, you could build a parts caster that'd be very similar. You just have to get an ash body and find a way that they would give you a maple veneer that looks similar to this, have it routed for a Floyd Rose, and yeah, you can buy these pickups separately. There's nothing you really can't get that wouldn't be super custom, except for your abalone inlays. I think that might be a little bit trickier, especially on the side, because most manufacturers don't do that, but I'm sure Warmoth could build you one if you wanted to. And, you know, freaky reverse headstock. Now, if you build a parts caster, it's not going to hold and go up in value like these guys will. So there's kind of a trade-off. Do you pay a lesser price and build it your own, or do you buy the limited edition that will eventually go out of production and then become more valuable? Potentially. So, Troglodytes, let me know it in the comment section. Did I review the wrong one? Did you really want to see the red? For me, it's all about the blue. The red doesn't do as much for me, but I think it depends on what kinds of music you're trying to play. Alright, thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. As always, if you're interested in being the next owner of one of these demo guitars, you can check them out on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. There's some links in the description.